Hello everyone and welcome to Blue Tengu's live game development show. It's going to be an interesting show today. We've got fireworks going off. It's a double episode. So I will go not 2 hours, but an hour and a half each one, because I do have something I need to take care of at 11. But I don't like missing episodes, and I will be gone next Sunday and the Sunday after that because of classes. So at least I want to make up for next week's episode, and then after that I can make up for the old episode. I'll put the announcements up as well as something on Twitch as well, showing dates. But just to let you know in advance, that's happening. Let me jump over to the desktop because it will be a busy day. 2 episodes. By the way, if you hear explosions, it's not because I'm living in a very dangerous place. It is fireworks. I guess they're practicing. But 2 episodes, Bathroom Broken and Judgment Day. The first one, what I want to do is finish off the closing well, not finish off the closing stage, but at least get some work done on the closing stage. I think finishing it off is going to be a little rough. As you can see, it is 8 hours there. As for Judgment Day, the next episode, it's going to be about getting the player that I have into the game. And what I have so far, especially since 123 Gas is in the room here with me, what I do have so far is I want to make the character a little abstract. One because it would fit the game better, I think, and then 2, I can't draw realistic characters, so kind of a needs-based design here. But there's the general model, and let's see. So tilting left and right with the boomerang, things like that. Mostly like hair movement, a little bit of leg movement when she's like resting, when she's throwing the boomerang, things like that. Just basic sketches here. I want to try to at least get the flying one into the game, maybe just the basic ground one or something, just to get an idea for how the sprites work out, and if I need to go back to the drawing board or not. Let's see. So the first thing, I do have GameMaker open already, so that's good. The first thing is to check out the closing stage. Let's get that in progress. Also, whiting out on the last tower. That's going to be a little tricky to do because it's easy to get to the last stage. I have a debug command for that, but it would be a little difficult to check the last tower. So what I could do is try to white it out on all the towers and then limit it to the last tower or something like that, just for testing purposes. So let's see. Let's actually start with the whiteout part because this task can go on for pretty much ever, and this task has at least a definite goal in mind. So, whiting out on the last tower. What I'm talking about is right now when you find these towers, usually they point a beam of light to where you're supposed to go next. Simple enough. But obviously when you reach the last tower, you're done, so there's no next to go to. So what I want to do is kind of blend it into what's going on. So what I want to do is actually have kind of multiple beams shoot out in every direction, just so you know that something different's going on. And then as they kind of fill up the screen gets wider and wider and wider, fades out, and then go jump into the closing stage. So that's kind of what I want to do with that. Let's see, should be good. As I said, double episode, but 1.5 hours each, so I'm gonna have to keep the pace up a little bit. Let's see, first thing is the tower. So what we want to do is modify every tower to do this, and then just branch later, just to make sure that we're able to test this stuff. The towers are those objects monoliths. Yes, this should be it. So right now, when the player does touch it, you get the holy burst particles, and you get like the sound effect. You get the monolith is found. You get the beam of light object that shows up, the object exit light object. So probably what we need to do is create a new object other than object exit. We need object finish or something like that. Duplicate object finish. Point the way out of the room. We don't need any of this stuff. We actually need all of these. And we're also going to need alarm triggers and stuff like that. So, step, exit particles, that's fine. Get rid of all the extra stuff since I don't know what it does anymore. Draw, exit target Y. So we kind of want to combine this and what's in the create step. So let's see, what we could do is rather than doing the calculation every time in the draw step, we could just keep track of these in variables. So exit direction, do I have that in here? And we've got our 4 directions that we'll be shooting light out in. And now we have to do the draw stuff. So exit target 01, 01, 2, 3, 4. And if it starts out shooting in all directions, that's fine. But just to put a little more flair into it, we probably want to turn them on one at a time. So we'll have to add something to do that. And let's add that here. Step 1, beam step. And each time we come in here, we'll add 1 to this. And if we get to beam step 1, 2, 3, so if it's less than 3, then we'll call the alarm again. Should be okay. And then we'll go back to this. If beam step is less than 1, no, I don't want to do it that way. If beam step is greater than 0, yeah, we'll do it that way. So the first line always gets drawn. The second line, beam step has to at least be 1. I'll keep it simple. It's not efficient, but we'll keep it simple because we're kind of checking the same thing over and over again. Obviously, if beam step is greater than 0, or greater than 1, it's greater than 0, etc. If beam step is greater than 2, we'll do that. Okay. So first time through, it'll draw one line. Half a second later, it'll draw another line, another line, another line. That should be what happens. So that's for obj finish. And now for testing purposes, what we want to do is replace what we've had so far with that obj finish. Yes, I should also mention during overtime, one thing I did do was, as a test, if the player has not discovered a location yet, I've graded out so that when they do discover it, the color kind of comes in. Not sure whether to keep that or not. It could be useful because, like, for example, if you're wandering around the map and you're not sure which islands you've been to before or not, having something like this not only visually kind of makes it dynamic, or a little more interesting anyway, it does have kind of a game use as well. So I might go with that. It's not too tough to do. What I have to do is gray out all the tiles and then kind of morph between the grayed out tile and the colored one. At least I can do all of that in Game Maker, so it's just a time issue. It's just like I need 4 hours to do it, basically, for all the tiles. So once all the tiles do go in, I can do it. Right now I'm just testing with the land tiles. Okay, we should be good to move on to the next room. So when I do find that first monolith, hopefully 4 beams shoot out, one right after the other. Let's cheat. cheat. Object. Yeah, I hope the stream does kind of fix itself for you guys. So as you can see, when the player's getting closer to the island, things light up. It probably should be player ground, but I'm not gonna worry about it too much. Okay. Let's see what happens. Let's make sure we get a nice good view of this. So we'll make sure that it's pointing up and see what happens. That's what happens. Particle exit burst. Okay, yeah, some of the particle stuff is using these other things. Got it. Alright, don't break. Okay, this is interesting. This is interesting. We do have multiple beams, but we've only got 2. Wish I could kind of go back and see the stream archive, because I'm not sure if they turned on one after the other. I think they both turned on at once, so I think what the problem is the alarm is not going off. Because we've got an alarm that's supposed to be turning one beam on, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one. But that is not working, so I think my logic is messed up in the alarm stuff. So if you haven't used Game Maker before, alarms are what you do to kind of trigger things. It's kind of like your weight. So let's see. Step, alarm 0. If beam step is less than 3, then we call this again. There's my problem. +1, not just 1. So it was probably going into the alarm over and over and over again, setting beam step to 1. But at least nothing crashed, so I think this time around it will work. There will be 4 beams of light coming out. Whew. What I need to do eventually is make a debug command that allows me to skip the tutorial even when I start a new game. It all works out in the end, but yeah, that's usually why game designers are frustrated. Okay, we do have 4 directions. Based on where this monolith is located, It's in the lower right corner of the room, which means to go. Let's take a screenshot of this, just in case I need it. Grab that, and paintbrush. So what's happening is, because we're in the lower left of the room, we're activating the monolith kind of down here. So it's working, but the problem is it's pointing north, south, east, and west, which means it's doing this. Yeah, which should coincide with what this looks like. Yes. Okay. So, how do we do this? I guess we just need to change the way it does directions. Rather than pointing to the edges of the room, we probably just need it to point, 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180, 270, and then just be done with it. That's probably the way to go. And Pandavit said, one day I'll buy you a beer, Tengu, and I'll listen to all your war stories. That would be fun. If you do ever get out to Japan, we're going to have to talk. Or if I ever get to Canada, we're going to have to talk. There's lots of fun stuff to talk about. But yeah, like even when I went to a game developer conference once, it was widely accepted that the game designer has a lot of problems because they're stuck in the middle. Like, someone gave a very good talk about that. How game designers are scapegoats. I'm not sure if that's publicly available on Gama Sutra or not, but if it is, that would be a very interesting thing to watch. Because very good points. One of the problems is that what a game designer does is very nebulous. Like a programmer, it's pretty obvious. You are the AI programmer. If the AI is broken, it's your fault. If something other than the AI is broken, it's not your fault. So it's pretty well defined. If you're the BG artist, if your BG looks bad, then it's your fault. If your BG looks good, then it's not your fault. It's very clearly defined. But the problem with a game designer is, like, what does a game designer do? The other parts, because they're kind of divided up into what they're doing, into very specific tasks, they assume that because there's a game designer, the game designer is the person responsible for making the game fun. Fair enough, but that's not always the case. And the problem with fun is that fun is kind of a combination of everything. It's a combination of the art, the systems, the QA, the music, the sound, how it all comes together, and how long you have to actually adjust all that stuff and make it fun. Because putting everything in is one thing, making it fun is another thing. It takes more time, and that's usually where the schedule kind of disappears on you. Because no one really sees that. It's too vague. There we go. 4 directions. And I could do 8 easily enough, so let's do that. And then we'll wrap this one up and white out the screen before the break. Finish, so let's do more directions. I'm going to assume it's fine. We'll test it when we do the whiteout stuff. So for the whiteout stuff, what we need to do is whatever we need to do to move to the ending room, we have to add that in, but we also need to have the whiteout stuff. So what we could do is, if beam step equals 7, so if we've got all 8 of those beams shooting out, then we could just suddenly white out the screen, or we could white it out while we're adding them. Let's do that. So we'll have 2 alarms kind of going side by side. One that's shooting those beams out, the other that's kind of whiting out the screen. And then we'll move to the last room. So let's see, alarm 1. We use alarm 1 for this one, and do we want to use an alarm? Actually, let's do this in step. To make the whiteout smooth, we should do this in step, just so that we're adding a little bit more whiteout every time. So exit particles, we'll have to do it in here. My white out the screen. What's the best way to do this? There's a couple of ways we can go about it. We can use the shader. We can kind of override everything we're doing in the shader and white out the screen that way. Or we could put basically a giant white box over the screen and work with that. Let me see how I'm doing the black fade outs and just copy that. Fade out. Step. Force fade alpha. So I'm doing all of this inside of Room Manager, which probably means I'm using the shader. Probably. Step. Maybe it's in throttle. Room dark alpha. So I'm probably combining these things into one alpha. Yes. Okay. A little bit complicated because it's all stuff from the past, but basically I've got one thing that kind of controls the brightness of the screen based on nighttime, and I've got another thing that controls the darkness of the screen based on fading out. So inside of Room Manager, what I'm doing is I'm combining those two and then passing it into the shader, which actually darkens the screen. In this case, is it worth doing it through the Room Manager? This is actually kind of complicated because I don't know what's going to break my code. I have to be careful. So yeah, let's catch up to the chat before I get into this because I will have to kind of concentrate. Ren for me says, you seem rather happy for a game designer then. Every time I see programming, I'm like, Q&A makes things fun. Yeah, I guess I am pretty happy for a game designer. You know, at the end of the day, you are making games, so that is fun, despite all the troubles. I wouldn't want to, like, I do have a programming background, but I wouldn't want to be a programmer because, I don't know, it's not for me. It's more like solving puzzles is more of kind of the game programmer rush, I guess, and I'd probably prefer to just do the creative stuff. Obviously I have to solve puzzles because I'm a solo game designer on this, so I kind of have to solve all the puzzles, but I would prefer to let someone who enjoys that do the programming side and just use their systems to do creative stuff. Okay, turn it off. Let's see what happens. Well, we do have the 5 beats working. The screen seems lighter, but that could just be because the night ratio is 0. It's obviously not getting whiter, but things aren't broken, which is good. It's a good start. I think I know what might be wrong. Before the break, Risa401 mentioned using the GUI layer for the white overlay, and that might be the best way to do this. I've always, with this game, because I'm using surfaces, rotating views, multiple views, because I'm doing all that stuff, the GUI layer almost never works out. If anything has to be related to the game itself, but because the white box just needs to be a white box on top of everything else, it might actually work out in our case. It might. So that would actually be the simplest way to do this. Draw rectangle color. And I have to remember how to do this. When you're using the GUI layer in GameMaker, it's ignoring views. So it's basically just 0, 0 is the top left of your window, and then something's the bottom right. And it's not view, it's... Arisa, you might have to help me out with this. Is it display? Is it... For some reason I'm blanking on it. If you want to get the bottom right. See white, and not an outline, And we have to change this to draw GUI. Try it. Window. Okay, yeah, window. Thank you, thank you. Window. Width. Yeah, it's not display. I knew display was wrong, but it's like for some reason window wasn't popping up in my head. Okay, maybe this will work. Let me delete the data. Help. Whew, made it in time. Okay, so we have a proper new game going. And if this doesn't work out, I will just leave it as a bug and try and fix it later. It's not as important as some of the other stuff we have to do today, so you know, whiting out the screen, it will get done. It's not risky. Hopefully the surface stuff doesn't mess it up. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, because if it's whiting out, it should just go over everything, which makes it a prime candidate for the GUI layer, so good insight, Risa. Speed up. Make sure I'm close to the ground. Yeah, the reason I'm going so fast is because I'm hitting O, which over here means speed boost. It's a debug command. Alright, let's see what happens. Risa for the win! There we go. There we go. Thank you, Risa. Problem solved. Draw GUI. Always forget about it. Always forget about it. But we have to get this to the closing room. So let's see, debug manager. What I need to do is during that whiteout, I need to fade to the last room. And I need to remember where that command is, because I have a debug command that takes me right to the ending. There we go. Saves the room, saves the grid, saves the global, saves the player, changes you to the dummy player, puts you in the air, puts you in the closing room. Okay, this should be fine. This should be fine to use as is. So finish. So let's see, what do we need to do? White out the screen. If finish alpha is less than 1, finish alpha, finish start, else. So we need to do a couple of things here, because we're going to need to fade in again as well, so we need to be careful to keep track of that. So as long as finish start is true, we're fading out to white. So that's finish start's true, then we white it out, yes. If finish alpha is less than 1, then we continue to white out the screen. Else we move to the next room. And we set finish start to false. So we're going to start fading into the room again. So we set that to false. If finish false, let's get rid of this one. Don't need this one anymore. If finish start is false, then we want to fade in. So fade in. So this time we want to go the other direction, so we're subtracting. And in this case, when we get to 0, we want to get rid of this finish object. So if finish alpha is greater than 0, then keep subtracting from it. Otherwise, destroy this object, because we don't need it anymore. So we theoretically jump to the closing room. We'll destroy this object. Will this work? Let's find out if this works. I'm bound to have forgotten something. And Ren for me asks, so how close are you to finishing the game? Which episode is this? This is episode... We're doing a double episode this week to make up for the fact that I won't be here next week or the week after that because of classes. But this is episodes 50 and 51. It's been an episode a week, so basically next week would have been the 51st week. The week after that would have been the 52nd week. So we're pretty much done with the game. The only problem is debugging it, because it is a large game and it is procedurally generated. So I don't want to release it before, like, at least I get as many bugs as I can get out of the way on my end. So what we're probably going to do is episode 52 will be the last time that I actually add anything newish to the game. And then from there it'll be mostly play testing it, brushing up graphics and stuff like that, fixing bugs, brushing up graphics, adding logos, preparing Steam Greenlight stuff, that kind of production work, as opposed to actually working on the game itself. So they won't be official episodes. They won't be like episode 53, 54, 55. Probably won't be any animated shorts during them either. And I would imagine, based on the state the game's in now and how much time I have to work on the game, which is almost none, probably about a month or two. Probably 2 is probably a safer bet. So somewhere towards the end of summer, the game will actually be done and ready to go. That's my estimate, because I do want to get started on Season 3. And I think Season 3, talked about it with 123 Gas a little bit as well, but I think Season 3, what I want to do is make it more interactive with you guys. I don't want to just have another season of me kind of making a game, and kind of like what I'm doing now is just testing and chatting and checking scripts and stuff like that, so I'm not able to interact very much. I think we can make this more interesting if there's more back and forth between us. So I want to have a project that's suited for that. The problem with Skyring, and even Project Spaghetti to some extent, is that they're both kind of complicated games, which means they require a lot of scripting, a lot of kind of staying focused, which makes it hard to kind of chat at the same time. So I probably need to take on something that's a little more like chat friendly. Also, one other problem is, because there's a lot of complicated scripting and everything else, if you haven't followed the show or if you're not familiar with GameMaker, you know, what the heck am I doing? It's hard to tell, I think. So that's also something that I want to address, you know, make it something where it's more visually obvious. Oh, okay, he's adding this to the game, or he's doing this right now. You know, where you can just tell at a glance that's what's going on, as opposed to, you know, staring at me like scratching my head and trying to figure out Boolean mistakes and things like that. Would like to move away from that in Season 3, at least try. And then, you know, if I can collaborate with you guys or whatever, that would be great. So let's try this. White out the screen. Yes! Yes! We moved to the ending! Ah, satisfaction. Obviously the closing room is not done. I've got to listen to the music now. Satisfaction. Made it to the ending in this episode. Good news. Good news. But yes, what we need to do with this is fill out this map. because right now I've just put down these like hex tiles to kind of gauge distance, but they're obviously, you know, what is the player doing? It's kind of Blade Runner-ish, like the original Blade Runner ending, where they're just kind of going over the Stanley Kubrick like green grass fields or whatever. Yes, thank you, Ren, for me. And yes, you figured out how to use the blue Tengu bot. Comes in handy for pulling me away from when I get too focused. But yeah, we're gonna keep having credits. So like for example, all of you guys are gonna be in the credits and whatnot. So that's why this is rather long. It's for the credits, and obviously you can skip out of it and go back to the title screen and everything else. But this is kind of the ending thing. But we need to fill out the map. Yes, Bandit's game over. So we need to fill out the map, and that's the main thing that's left. But what I think I'm going to do is, because this is a double episode today, and we do need to get on to the next episode, is I do need to get that working for some of the new guys who are following the show. So we've got the closing stage. Let's just say last tower moves to closing stage. We got that done. So there's, oh, let's see, this isn't really a graphics thing. The one thing we do need to do is right now, for testing, what I've done is I've made it so that every tower shoots into the last stage, but we probably want to stop that in the future. So I'm going to put that task off to the side. And closing stage, I'll keep this task off here. So white out on the last tower, multiple beams, fire out. Last tower, last monolith, I should say. It's not a tower. So those are the things we got done. So that was episode 50, Bathroom Broken. This is going to be a little weird for those of you following me on Twitch, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign out once for the benefit of the people on YouTube, and then sign back in and start on episode 51, which is getting those player kind of not really sprites, but those drawings that I have, the sketches of the player I have into the game to see how it fits with the atmosphere, and that would be episode 51. We do have to get started on that because this episode did run for almost 2 hours, so, and I need to stop at 11, which means I've got another hour and 10 minutes to go, and I have to do that, so we'll see. But I'll wrap up for the sake of YouTube people. I'm not actually going anywhere, so no worries. Thank you for watching our game development show. You can catch past episodes in this one over at youtube.com/BlueTenguStudio. If you're watching this later on YouTube, come drop by the live show we do every week at Twitch TV Blue Tengu. We do this Sundays from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Japan, which translates to 4 to 6 Pacific, 5 to 7 Mountain, 6 to 8 Central, 7 to 9 Eastern. If you're in the UK, it starts, I think, midnight and goes until 2 a.m. If you're in Japan with me, obviously 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Sunday. And starts anywhere from 8 a.m. to noon, depending on where you live in Australia. And I think it starts at noon in New Zealand. But we do always announce what we're doing through Twitter. So follow BTengu, BTENGU on Twitter, to keep track of when the live show starts or episodes go up, or to at least know what we're up to. Follow us on Twitch or YouTube because you can get announcements that way as well. And I appreciate it. Of course, you can see what we're up to anytime at our site, bluetengu.com. And again, if you pitched in a little extra for our Season 1 game, Project Spaghetti, you do have the Sapphire Key. You can unlock the prototypes. I think I put one up last week for Skyring. So it's pretty up to date. The only thing you'd be missing is the tower stuff and what we do today. And of course, we appreciate any support you can give us getting Project Spaghetti greenlit on Steam. But thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.